Our top story, long queues are building on Sudan's borders where people fleeing intense fighting are facing huge waits and demands for visas to cross to safety. The UN's refugee agency, that's the UNHCR, says it was expecting almost a third of the million refugees to cross into Chad and South Sudan. Britons needing evacuation have been told to make their own way to an airfield near the capital, Khartoum. But it's a perilous journey during a precarious ceasefire, leaving many weary of leaving their relatives' safety of home. Now, Arise News chief correspondent John Cookson has this report.
Only the brave venture out into the almost deserted streets of the Sudanese capital, Khartoum. There's a shaky ceasefire allowing some to go out and look for food and water, but the chances of being shot remains very high. This resident says, "We can't leave our homes even if we're told it's safe. Our children go out in the morning to try to find water, but we can't even get water to drink now. We're going to die in our homes," she said. Thousands of foreign nationals evacuated from Sudan are starting to arrive in their home countries. These are families who've made it to Paris. This Frenchman says, "What's happening in Sudan is very violent. We've never seen two armies facing each other before, so it's very difficult, but we've been really well taken care of." And this was Jeddah, a Saudi Arabian port on the Red Sea. More than 1,000 evacuees from 58 countries have arrived so far. And as they did so, thousands of miles away in New York, there were calls in the UN for the fighting to stop.
We need an all-out effort for peace. I call on the parties to the conflict, on Generals Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and Mohamed Hamdan Daglo, Hemeti, and the Sudanese armed forces and the rapid support forces to silence the guns. It is incumbent on Sudanese leaders to put the interests of their people front and center. This conflict will not and must not be resolved on the battlefield with the bodies of Sudan's people.
The British government also called on both factions to come to the peace table.
I'm encouraged that both factions have called a 72-hour ceasefire, though of course we cannot be sure for how long it will hold. And any evacuation from a battle-scarred city is inherently dangerous. Britain is working hand in glove with our partners across the world, and after this operation we will do everything possible alongside our friends in the region to secure a lasting settlement for this tragic conflict.
For now, Khartoum holds its breath, but what will the two warring generals do when the truce ends? John Cookson, Arise News.
Well, now John Cookson, Arise chief correspondent, joins us from London for more. Hello, John. What's the latest on the ground in Sudan?
Well, latest on the ground, as you said in the intro, is this mad rush to the borders by people who can actually get out of cities like Khartoum. Some of these road journeys are absolutely horrendous. I know the road reasonably well from Khartoum to Port Sudan, and that's 15 hours at the best of times now. There'll be roadblocks and checkpoints on the way. So people who are getting out will have faced quite a journey in the last day or so. A third of a million refugees already on the Chad, South Sudan border, and who knows, it must be at least that number again. People trying to get into Egypt, Ethiopia, and other neighbouring countries. So pretty grim still on the ground for those people who have been able to get out. The problem is, as I said in my report, there are snipers in Khartoum, and they have been picking off people as they walk down the street. So it's a very brave family that leaves the shelter of wherever they are and tries to make it to one of the muster points, or tries to get on a bus out of the country. So things pretty grim at the moment. Brits have rescued at least 1,000. Well, they will have by tonight. Airlifted them to Larnaca, And the situation is pretty much the same as far as other European countries are concerned, like France and Italy. I was interested to see that, and I said so in my report, that there were nationals from 58 countries have arrived already in Jeddah trying to get out. The British government say that they will support whatever evacuation procedures are underway for as long as it takes. But the brutal truth is that this ceasefire runs out at midnight tomorrow, Thursday. And as I said in my report, who knows what's going to happen then?
Who knows indeed. Now, the UN has called for peace, but will anyone take notice?
Look, Guterres is a decent man. The Secretary General, generally speaking, the United Nations is a sound body. There's a lot of good. But in this particular case, in the early stages of what was possibly going to be an escalating and long-running conflict, I'm afraid these calls for peace out of New York are not going to be, they'll be listened to, but not followed up. We've got these two warring generals, General Dagalo of the RSF and General Al-Burnham, effectively the president of Sudan, still at loggerheads on various issues, and this sparked the conflict that we've got. There are reports today, though, that from Egypt that the two men have agreed to meet, but no one's confirmed that yet.
Okay, John, let's talk about the significance of a prison escape by a top former Sudanese government official. What's the implication of this?
Yes, you're talking about Ahmed Haroun, and he's been charged in the past with 44 counts of war crimes and crimes against humanity during the rule of the President al-Bashir, and during his 30-year rule. Arguably one of the worst as far as atrocities are concerned on the African continent. He was held in jail along with Bashir until a jailbreak out of Kober jail. The former president is allegedly in hospital under guard, but this guy...
Well, it appears we've lost connection with our Arise chief correspondent, John Cookson, but, I was hoping that he could give us
a bit more of an insight into
what he might be hearing about either the Nigerian students and also the resilience that's being showed by doctors that are currently on ground in Sudan. It seems we have our correspondent now with us, Arise chief correspondent, of course, John Cookson. Thank you for staying tuned. Now, we were talking about the Nigerian students, but I would also like for you to touch on, the resilience that's being showed by doctors and, those in the medical field on ground who are determined to see things through. And they're saying that they're not going to desert Sudan, the people of Sudan, or those who might need help or medical attention based on this.
Extraordinary bravery by these people trying to keep hospitals running with very little medical equipment. This is a city, we're talking about Khartoum here, that there's no food and no water. So God knows what the situation is in the hospitals in Khartoum. And indeed, some health providers have been killed so far in the conflict. We don't know how many. But some have died already, so they have lost colleagues. Now, the Nigerian students is a very, very good question. The BBC are running a headline at the moment saying that only Nigerian students are left. In other words, students from other countries, South Africa, Kenya, Mali, Ivory Coast, Uganda, have all got out, but the Nigerians are still waiting for rescue. Now, NIDCOM, which is organising the evacuation of Nigerians, all Nigerians from Khartoum, insist that buses are on the way. Now, without being there, it's impossible to tell whether those buses have actually arrived. The plan is to get the Nigerian students who are left on these buses and then take that 1,000+ kilometre road north to Egypt and then fly them home from Egypt to Nigeria. But No confirmation yet that the buses have arrived, although NIDCOM is saying that this evacuation program is now underway. But it's still very worrying that students have been online in the last 24 hours begging for help and saying that they're running out of food.
Oh, it's rather, rather unfortunate, especially as we're looking at the ceasefire ending at midnight tomorrow, just as you said, John. Thank you so much for being here.